Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. What's on your mind today?
Okay, so we recently had a conversation, and in it, I said some words in French. I like the French.
Okay.
And you then did some derogatory nasal noises, of course. And I said, "Well, why do you do that? Like, what is your thing with the French?" And so, how did that conversation go?
Yeah, so I immediately feel like I'm on the hot seat because I feel like I've done something wrong. And so like the things I've been taught about the French are not, besides like Revolutionary War that they helped us out. It's always been, I remember there was a joke growing up that French tanks had 5 gears, 1 forward and 4 in reverse, because they were always retreating.
Okay.
And that they were quick to lose world wars and, that type of thing. So it's always been, that's just my opinion of them, is all based on that kind of stuff, like weakness and that type of thing.
Okay. And then I basically said that you've been propagandized.
Okay.
So we said basically let's make a video about it, and we haven't talked about this beforehand. Let's just break down like how you've been propagandized.
Yeah, deprogramming.
Okay, so you got the American Revolution. Good.
Okay.
They didn't do that because they liked us, but because they didn't like England.
Right. Enemy, my enemy is my friend.
Right.
Type of thing.
And then so like, what's your take on Napoleon Bonaparte?
I know he was short. I know I forget the battle that he had, Waterloo. I feel like that was the last battle that he lost. And he died on the island, I think, somewhere like in a prison or something.
Elba or something. Yeah. Okay. But it's like, if you were looking through history, like, are the French strong or not? This is an example of when they were strong.
Okay.
They conquered all of Europe.
Oh, okay.
All of the Europe, we'll say. Continental. So not, England.
Okay.
Because England doesn't get conquered. They did have a plan, though, for flat bottom boats and crossing a channel.
Wow.
But like everybody knows, you can't win all the way up until D-Day. The theory was it is impossible to win taking a beach.
Oh, okay.
It never happened in the history of man until D-Day. And even at D-Day, people were like, you can't do it, So we'll see. Anyways, we'll get to that story later. But basically, he conquered all of Europe, which is an impressive thing to do.
Sure.
A small amount of Europe is an impressive thing to do. And then he basically went off into Russia to conquer Russia, which is now Asia.
What was the time frame of this? Was that like 1700s or 16?
I don't recall, honestly.
I feel like there was muskets.
It was near the Louisiana Purchase. It was 19th century.
Okay, gotcha.
Correct? Yeah, 19th century.
Okay.
Early, I believe. And so anyways, he went into Russia, and then they did the scorched earth thing where they pull back as the winter came.
Oh, okay.
And then basically when they ran out of provisions, they tried to leave, and then, But basically conquering all of Europe's a pretty big thing. So we can say they were pretty strong then, right?
Okay.
And then if we were to go up to World War One, so what do you think about the French in World War One?
Well, that would be the trenches and all that. And the war lasted for years. So, I mean, they had to have held their own and be at least strong enough to do that.
Yeah. So one of the misconceptions about World War One. Okay. So who's the bad guy in World War
One? The Germans?
Why?
I have no idea.
Because they were the aggressors. That's how we determine who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. Because they aggressed. They started the war, right?
That sounds like we're the bad guys a lot then.
Okay, yeah.
Just say it. If that's the barometer.
If that's the standard, yeah, we are the worst country that's ever existed, which is possibly true. So anyways, but going back to this is also a myth too, is that German was the aggressor.
Oh, okay.
Because France was the aggressor. And so you won't read it in your history books. You got to go actually read some real books that are actually having some real facts in them. But basically what happened is they were so...
They being the Germans?
No, the French.
Okay.
The French wanted the war so bad that they started the war.
Oh.
And how they did it was, we all know about the Archduke Ferdinand. You know about that?
No.
Okay. So Germany was allied with Austria.
Okay.
And Austria was... The Serbians don't like the Austrians, and they're right next door. Archduke Ferdinand was in Austria or whatever, and a Serbian nationalist killed him, assassinated him. And then basically Austria produced I forget how many demands there were, but it was seen at the time as an unreasonable and completely unacceptable list of demands that could never be accepted by any sovereign country. Serbia then accepted, which is insane because they were trying to avert the war. Now, Serbia has allies, and the allies are very powerful. I believe Russia was their ally. So the allies are very powerful, but the allies aren't near them. So they will be destroyed, if it goes to war. And so they're just trying to avert war. Anyways, and then So the deal is, like, if you were talking about the preparation for this, Germany, okay, so your army's not a standing army, right?
Okay.
You have to mobilize. So you have to come from your farm to the front or whatever, you know? And Germany is it's not too far from any one place in Germany to another.
Oh, okay.
You know, because it's not like a long, thin country where you might have to traverse, 800 miles to get there. Russia is very large.
Very.
It takes a long time. So basically, it took about 6 weeks for Russia to mobilize, but I believe it took 2 weeks for Germany to mobilize.
Wow.
So what happened is the French wanted to start the war, and all these tensions are up. So they sent a secret communication from France to Russia that was intentionally captured by the Germans, and it said, begin mobilization, but secretly, because we're going to destroy these Germans, you know? And the Germans said, oh no, the Russians are going to mobilize. You're now the aggressor, but you're not.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's just that the Allies, we'll say, won, and the Allies wrote the history book, so the Germans are the aggressor, you know? You could also talk about them invading the neutrality of Belgium and Holland, but that's a different story. Anyways, but what I'm saying is the French were so crazy, you know, in their war lust, that they pushed to start World War I, which people don't know.
Okay.
And then in World War I, it is true that it was solely the French who broke the back of the German army.
Okay.
Do you know? Because the Russians did good. Then we helped the Germans get rid of the Russians because our interest wasn't the American people. And so basically, we could talk about that another time. But basically, we helped to Germany get Russia out of the war so that we could lose more soldiers in France because our people were our second concern there. And so anyways, and we did go and help, you know, but it was the French who held them, you know?
Okay.
And so the French lost so many people that they had a saying that said, France will cease to exist if we have a war this big every 20 years.
Wow.
Because every town, there were just graveyards everywhere because they lost all their men,
All the fighting age men, yeah.
Right. And just a generation was gone. And so basically what you're talking about comes from them losing World War II.
Okay, gotcha.
This is where it comes from. And there's two things I want to talk to about this. If we want to say who was the aggressor in World War II, who was it?
I'm assuming Germany?
Incorrect.
Oh,
I'm going to make an argument against it.
Oh, for
okay.
two.
So again, France wanted the war. Now England wanted the war and France wanted the war. But the French people no longer wanted the war.
But they did want World War One.
Yeah. So when World War I, when you went off to war, it was you would go jump on the train and there would be parades, there would be women, and it would be like screaming and yelling and confetti. It would be that type of thing. When you went off to World War II when you were in France, it was just everybody just.
It was almost like a here we go again.
Get in the train, yeah, and just everybody's just there crying. They're like another generation. They're never going to come back. Do you know what I mean?
Because there were only 20 years ish separated between.
It's 20 years, yeah, at a few. And so basically, the spirit of the French people wasn't behind the Second War, you know. But again, it was the French government wanted the war.
You know why?
Because they had interests other than the French people.
Okay.
The same reason all these things start. And it's the same problem we have today. The problem with our government is that their interest is not the American people, which is what we want. So in these situations, like if I could just briefly go over it. So Germany was trying to recapture the lands that they had lost at the Versailles Treaty of Versailles, which was when they surrendered the First World War.
Okay.
And so they had been partitioned. And then, Hitler had come to power saying he was going to reunify Germany. And so he had reunified different areas, but there's only one more area that he had to reunify. This is at the start of the war, And so you have Germany here, and then you got a little section that comes up here by the Baltic Sea, and it's called Prussia, right? Or East Prussia,
Okay, but that's to the west, like towards...
No, to the east.
Oh, to the east.
So I'm doing it for them on the camera.
Oh, okay.
So here, and then it comes up over here by the Baltic Sea.
Okay.
And so Prussia's famous because, in the 19th century, the Germans were at war the entire time. There's Bismarck, everything.
Wow.
And it was just I'm exaggerating, but this is what they do, And they were famous. Their Prussian officers were famous. And they're Germans,
Okay.
But it's a place called East Prussia. And they're like blue-blooded, like they're like elitists, And so what happened is after World War I, there's Germany and here's East Prussia. And then they took and just carved out a little place right there. That's not yours anymore. Because Poland's right here to the east of them, and Poland needed a port. They were landlocked. So they're going to get one city and access to the Baltic Sea. That one city is called Danzig, which was then called the Free City of Danzig after it was given to Poland. And so now Prussia was separated from Germany proper.
Oh,
So like if you wanted to travel from Prussia to Germany, but you didn't want to do an international travel, you would have to get in a sealed train. It's not allowed to stop at all in Poland, the Free State of Danzig, because, it's not an international, it's just, you're just trying to stay in Germany. And so basically the Free State of Danzig was like 90-something% Germans, And there's this myth that they do right now. Then they were like, oh, well, Hitler was doing false flags, like pretending as if ethnic Germans in the Free City of Danzig were being, they were like faking attacks. Like, oh, look, the Poles are attacking them. They're we got to go in and help them,
Oh, okay, yeah.
If you look into it, because there was I don't like the Soviets very much. I'll just let you know. But in the 50s, there was a Soviet historian who went all in this area and let's see what's going on, And he said, oh, yeah, it was terrible. They were slaughtering the Germans. Like at one point, they took over 300 ethnic Germans, put them in a church, locked it up, and just lit her on fire.
Wow.
Like if that happened once, that would be enough for invasion, in my opinion. Because if 300 Americans were locked in somewhere in Cuba, let's go.
We're getting them. Yeah,
right. Yeah. In my opinion. So basically, so he just give me back the Free City of Danzig, Hitler says, and he's telling Poland this, right? Now you got to understand, Germany, France, and Poland are the 1, 2, 3 armies on the continent. That's number one, number two, number three. Poland. And I'm not sure if France or Germany was number one, but I know Poland was number 3. So they have a substantial army. And basically, because Hitler had done bad things previous to this, he had there was a Munich Pact, and he had completely violated that pact. And he said he had no more territorial ambitions. And because of this, they said, we're going to draw a hard line and we're going to stop appeasing you. But the problem is Danzig is in his reunification plan and people are getting persecuted there, right? So in order to start the war, France and England lied to Poland. And they said, let's form a defensive pact. If we form a defensive pact, if you are attacked, France promises to invade Germany from the west. And the British Expeditionary Force promises boots on the ground in Poland, right? Well, they were lying 100%.
They being
France and England were both lying 100%. So Poland was filled with a false sense of security, not knowing they were being lied to. These are two great powers. Like against one great power, or formerly great power, Germany,
right.
Like you got this in the bag, but you don't know that they're just completely lying to you, Now, the reason they're lying is because neither of them fulfilled either parts of their pact. They just wanted to get the war started, so that they could lower Germany's power once again, who was now in the process of regaining power. So, I mean, and they tried, like, I think it was Molotov was it? Well, Ribbentrop, I forget which one, was, I think it was Ribbentrop, was the foreign minister for Germany. And they were like calling him at like 11:59 p.m. They were calling him like, please answer the phone. They're like, no, we don't need to answer the phone. Just soldiers are going to march over your border at 12:01. It's going to happen, And so Poland wouldn't make a deal, which they should have just given the city back, honestly, But anyways, so what happened is France wanted the war so bad in this war that they lied. And then, so Hitler, of course, invaded, and the French got their troops and they're like, okay, march them towards Western Germany. So they marched a little bit and they're like, no, send them back. Okay. Contract fulfilled. You know what I mean? And the British are like, should we send boots on the ground? They're like, we're not even going to try. You know what I mean? And so then Poland was, defeated quickly because Hitler just blitzed straight for Warsaw when they had surrounded the Free City of Danzig with their defenses up by the Baltic Sea. There's Prussia here and this and that. And they're like, we're going straight for Warsaw. And of course, he had made a secret pact with Russia, so Russia comes from the other side. Anyways, and one of the reasons why they were lying in that is because for 9 months after that, do you know how much war there was?
I'm guessing 0?
It was called the Phony War or the Phantom War.
Really?
And in that war, like Germany seized Denmark and Norway.
Okay.
But there was no war because, they just wanted to get the war started. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And you also know that France was very aggressive in this war because, well, England mostly, we'll say, because over the course of the war, and I'm not talking about when they were losing, but when they were winning, Hitler offered 20 peace deals to England. Like as soon as he captured France, he said, okay, here's the deal. I'll give back all of France right now. You know what I mean? I want my colonies back in, Africa. And the German army will support you anywhere in the world that you need help. Like it was like, that's a dang good deal, So that the Germans weren't going for war, but the French were, which So that's the problem with the French government, not the French people. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
And so what happened in the war that they lost was that, number one, their morale was down to nil. And number two, they just got out strategized. You know, like in the war, a German plane crashed and it had the war plans for invading France on it, you know, and the French got it. And they're like, oh, we got their war plan. They're going to pretend to do the exact same maneuver that they did in World War I, which is fan down like this through Belgium, Holland, and coming from northeast France. But they're really going to sneak their army through the Ardennes forest, you know? But then they knew that the Germans knew that they had it, you know? But then, the French knew that the Germans knew the French knew, you know? So everybody knows. So then the Germans ended up just doing that plan, you know? And then they just ended up routing them. But the morale was so low. And anyways, so they did lose that war. And you could say because their morale was low that they were cowards. But if you say somebody loses a war and then just one war, and then they're forever deemed cowards, I got to say it's pretty silly, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, another thing that the French are known for, though, is tell me the story about freedom fries. How did those come about?
I have no idea.
You don't remember the freedom fries story?
I don't think so.
Oh, it was, I believe it was Desert Storm, the first war.
Okay.
And the French said, no, we don't really feel like going over there and killing a bunch of brown people. You know, we're like, you're terrible people. You're not going to go kill the brown people over there in the Middle East with us? You know? And we're like, we're renaming our French fries to freedom fries. That's what we said. Because they're cowards. Oh. They're not in on the slaughter with us. We're just shock and awe, baby. You know what I'm saying? It's going down right now. And you don't want in on this? You know, you just got to stand by while we just slaughtered the civilians. Yeah. You know? And so that's another reason that I would have thought that you would have thought that the French were weak because, you know, freedom fries, they're not manly enough to go murder people with us.
Yeah, no, that story it rings a bell now. And I brought up something else, some other story. I don't know if this is true. I was always told that the helicopters that the French have, their blades spin the opposite direction of everyone else in the world, like just to be difficult. Like just to be a... Okay. And again, I don't know if that's true, but it's just one of those things that goes to like when they talk, you know?
Okay. So, I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay.
But what's wrong with that if it is true?
Just to be difficult. I don't know if it handles differently or
I
don't know.
Okay. So on the one hand, I've got this feeling that we're talking about like they're kind of cowards, but they're not. Can you see in the totality of history that they're not? They lost one war.
Right.
Which they instigated that war themselves. Their leadership, because they're so terrible.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really the government that is the issue, not the people as much.
Okay, and I feel like another problem you have with them is the elitism.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that's part of it.
Okay. But I appreciate them because of their elitism. Not because I'm an elitist. So like I speak French, right? And they have their French Academy, right? And it's a group of the most notable people in their society in France who have like a part-time job, and their job is to police the French language just to make sure no bad foreign words get in there.
Really?
So there's a story when they started saying the French equivalent of zapper as a remote control. And so then the Academy comes out and says, nope, no zapper. That's not in our language, you know? So now you can say it in your house if you want. You can do whatever you want, but you can't print a book with it. You can't print a news article. You can't say it on the television. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Because
they're trying to keep the purity of the language. If you know French, zapper is a terrible word to put in French. It's terrible.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense. It's garbage. And whereas we have like bootylicious in the dictionary.
Sure.
We got some great ones, you know? So in a sense, I like their elitism when it is possibly benefiting their culture. So they can't extend the same elitism to their immigration policy, which would also preserve their culture, you know, which is one of their failures. But where they do it to the language, I approve.
Okay. So that part of the conversation, you completely flipped me around just instantly. So, you know, part of my journey in learning things is that, you know, people are great for different reasons. And so the French wanting to be French and like better French people, more French or whatever, I can totally appreciate that. That's great because I want, you know, my people to be more, you know, that type of thing.
Of my culture. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So one of the things about France that you might not know is that everybody who's anybody used to speak French. France used to speak French. So that like when a book is written, So I got into Russian literature, right?
Okay.
Really like Leo Tolstoy. I had to read everything he wrote. And in the books, they're translated from Russian, obviously. But these are older books. They're not like Penguin books or something nowadays. They don't bother translating the French into English. The French was written in the Russian version in French. So it goes, the whole book's Russian, and then the French excerpts are French. You don't deserve to read the book if you don't read French. So then when they translate into English, you got all English, and the French are still French. So you'll go at one point in War and Peace, which is a beautiful book. You get to like both sides of the page and then flip it both sides of the page, and there's not one English word. It's the whole conversation just went in French. And so it's like, there was a certain beauty to that, because it was like the language of people who were sophisticated and educated in a world where very few people were educated. And that was just the general fault of the way that societies were made up back then as compared to now. But I'm just saying, they come from this history where they know this. They know that you don't know that, and you don't understand that, and you're going, ha, 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 and you don't know that. Okay. But they know it. And then they look down on you, even the taxi driver, and says, stupid Americans, because you just don't know. You have American education, obviously. Yeah. Anyways. So, yeah, I would just say, just question everything. Just who knows? Like, even the things I've said right now. Was I wrong about 18 things because I'm an unread fool? Perhaps. Look them up. Yeah. Look them up and see. And if anything I said today you didn't know about history and it surprised you, look that up. Sure. Just prove me a liar. And you'll find out that some of the things you think you know, you don't. Yeah. It's very interesting. I'm wondering how many more things we're going to come across that I'm pre-programmed to assume are a certain way, and I can keep unlearning them. Mm-hmm. So again, if you know anyone who's programmed, and if you have any ideas for other like deprogramming videos, we'd love to hear them. Comment below. We'll sticky our favorites, and maybe we'll try to make a video at some point with them. And if you think of anything, if you do research anything I say and you found out where I was wrong, put that in the comments. I'll pin you to the top if you can find something, but it's going to be a hard road there, I think. Challenge dropped. Here we go. All right. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time. We pre-recorded this video when we missed something very major, another point I want to hit you with. But I forgot to talk about the protests in France. Okay. So basically in November of 2018, so earlier in 2018, President Macron, he made a gas tax. Right, I remember that. Yeah, so he's trying to save the environment. So he's going to charge more for gas, equivalent to 25 cents per gallon in the U.S. Okay. Increase. And so they signed a petition in May, 1 million people saying, we want this, withdrawn or whatever. And then that did nothing. So November 2018, the Yellow Vest protests start. Millions of people, depending on the weekend, came out every weekend for 16 months. Wow. Yeah. It took, what was it? So it started in November. In December, he said, I'm going to put a 6-month hold on this tax. And they kept coming out because the tax is still there. They're just holding it till you calm down. Right. So these are ongoing today. Oh, the Yellow Vest protest. There's phase 1, phase 2. So there's like a lull, So whatever happened with the gas tax, they implemented after the 6 months? I'm not sure exactly. Okay. Honestly, I just don't know. But the point of this is that if they put a 25 gas tax on you as an American, you wouldn't do anything. Right. These people are so much more incredibly powerful than any American because you won't protest anything. I won't, he won't, you won't. Well, I mean, we would if we could get together, which is the point of this channel. Right. But what I'm saying is if you want to make the point that the French are weak, they're out there protesting. Gotcha. So the current issue is this. The retirement age for full, like basically Social Security pension, is 62 in France. Okay. They're trying to raise it to 64. Okay. Okay. Basically, Macron has said, this is too important to put to the legislature, so I'm just going to make it by decree. So they're out there. Millions of people in the streets protesting, right? Here's your situation in the United States. Right now, it's 67 in the United States, and they're talking about raising it to 70. Not one person will protest in the United States. Most people won't even know it's happened until after it's happened. Right. And then it's too late. So I'm just saying, my point here at the end here is that if you just want to talk about the French being weak, that is false. Yeah. Just compare yourself to them. Right. And what we're willing to do versus them. Yeah, totally. And I mean, I just imagine a lot of the protesters are from third world countries because like Algeria used to be a colony of France, so you can get free automatic citizenship in France if you want to just go there, as like reparations or whatever. But I mean, so a lot of the protesters are third worlders, and you don't even come close to them.
Yeah.
And do you know what I'm saying?
Right. It's pretty sad. I mean,
It's pretty sad.
Yeah.
And we're gonna make an entire video about this, but just Americans are just so pathetically weak. Oh, you've got guns. You've got tons of guns. You got tons of ammunition. You got a pickup truck. You got a "Don't Tread on Me" flag.
Sure.
You got America shirts.
And that's it.
That's it.
Right.
Not one protest, except for January 6th.
Yeah.
Which we could say a lot about because the federal government prohibits you from protesting by putting federal agents in order to create false flags.
Right.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't protest. It just means when federal agents come and tell you should do something illegal, you shouldn't do something illegal.
Right.
But even if you look at in France, they're doing illegal stuff. They're burning cars. They're doing this and that. Did you see the video recently with the police?
No.
Okay. If you remember back to when they were doing it over the fuel tax, there was this scene where the rioters came up to the police, and then the captain just took his helmet off, and then all the police took their helmet off,
Yeah.
and then everybody cheered. There's this one that's going on right now from a week or two ago, and you just see all these cops just riot gear, just marching. They're just marching. They're on a mission. They all got their helmets off and they're marching. And then as soon as they finish marching, you get to the tail end of them, and you just see the whole crowd's behind them. They're just leading the march.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then you get to a section of the march, and it's all just firefighters in full gear. They got their flares out, and they're just walking. And possible here.
Is it?
Absolutely possible.
Okay.
This is the point of our show, though. If we just all rise up,
But you think that there's enough good police left that would actually be willing to stand up for the people?
It depends where you're at, though.
Okay.
If you're talking Capitol Police, the answer is heck no. There's not one good Capitol Police officer.
Right.
But I was on a conversation with my father, and I was talking to him about this type of stuff, and he's like, but what can we do? What can we do? If all the people get together,
Right.
there's a very small group of people that oppose. If you look at the military, right? There's a very small amount of the military, consisting of generals and whatnot, who oppose the people. Your soldiers, your National Guard, these people are just your neighbors.
Right.
They're your neighbor's sons or daughters,
Right. They're just people.
And so when it comes down to it, we just need a public uprising. But first we need to educate people, and that's what we're doing now. And people are honestly getting very educated, because you look at the perception of people compared to a couple months ago, where they automatically think things are false flags, which is a huge step in the right direction. Right.
Because they've been false flagging for decades, and now they're finally...
And they've been doing it so much in the recent past. Every year there's multiple false flags.
They're overplaying, yeah.
Right. So I do think, despite my poor opinion of Americans at the moment, I do believe that it is possible.
Gotcha.
I'm not trying to black pill you.
Right.
I'm trying to encourage you to join a movement. And I mean, people will leave fantastic comments and then they won't click subscribe. Join the movement. There's so much we could do together.
Right.
That's just my whole thing. What do you think?
No, I think that's a good argument. Something that popped in my head as you were talking about how there's few people that are against the regular people. And as we've talked about in other videos, they go out of their way to try to convince Americans that what they're doing is right, because they know that they need the public support. They can't just do this without the people being lied to and behind them, because we give them the power, and they're not at the point yet where they can do things
out in the open.
Right.
Right.
Which shows that how much power we actually have if we would just use it. Temporarily, we have that power. And that, currently, yeah.
Right. I would say seize the day, because we're getting to central digital currency. We're getting to the places where they could just come out and do it in the open.
Right.
Just pull grandma out of her house and nobody says anything.
Right.
At least we say something now. We don't do anything, but at least we say something. At least we can say something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So join a movement.
Definitely.
Join us, join somebody else, start a movement. I'll join you.
Right.
Right. Do something. Participate in a protest. Think about possibly in the future, maybe joining a protest. Right.
Yeah.
Because people won't even consider this.
Right.
If I could throw a story in here.
Yeah.
One time, you lived in a different state than you live now. And I was talking to you on the phone. I'm like, well, why don't you go to this protest at your capital? And you were like, I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
And then you did.
Yeah.
For whatever it's worth, for that protest. But what I'm saying is, even sometimes we don't even think about possibly doing it, you know?
Right. If it's not spoon fed to you, like, oh,
Right.
I have to drive. And
Right. It's a
it's
minor
important.
inconvenience,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't get to play a computer game or something,
Right.
you know? Right. Okay. That's what I got.
Okay. Hope you enjoyed this little bonus clip on this extra information. Let us know what you think about what's going on in France, and we'll talk to you next time.